Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel and welcome back to the Sims 4 speedrunning video, or welcome to the channel if you are new here. So in today's video I'm going to be building in the world of Willow Creek, which is one of the base game worlds, and I'm going to be building what I tried to be a cookie cutter, perfect, big suburban family home, but I made it for the Pancakes family. So this house ends up having 4 bedrooms and 3.5 bathrooms, and it's built on a 30 by 20 lot. Now this week I'm so excited because I finally came into my game and gave Bob and Eliza Pancakes a brand new house for my save file. Now if you're completely unaware of who Bob and Eliza Pancakes are, don't worry, we're going to get right into the nitty gritty of it because they've got quite a in-depth storyline behind this couple, but they are basically this pre-existing family that came with the Sims 4 base game, and as many of you probably know, I'm currently in the process of building a save file, and yeah, it's been a little bit weighing on me to actually sit down and build them a brand new home. But yeah, this week I came into my game and I built them what I tried to make into kind of like a perfect cookie cutter suburban house in the world of Willow Creek, and I'm really happy with the way it turned out. I must admit, some of the stuff on the interior isn't my personal particular style, but I tried to have elements of their original house when you go into a brand new save file and kind of like take bits and pieces from that style and implement it into this build, but do it in my own way, if that makes any sense. And yeah, I'm really happy with it, and so I really hope you like it as well. But anyway, moving on from that and getting on and talking a little bit more about the build itself and also what I'm doing right now. So as you can see, I've already built the main shape and structure for the build. I'm just coming in now and figuring out the wallpapering. I was looking at a picture that I found on Pinterest when I was building this, and so I will, find it for you and pop it up on the screen so you can kind of see what I was looking at when I was building the Pancakes family a new home. But something that I wanted to mention is the wallpaper in this build, because pretty much coming into making a new house for the Pancakes family, I wanted to kind of play into their name a little bit because their name is Pancakes, and so I thought, well, why not for a colour scheme I try and make it look like a colour scheme of a traditional looking pancake. And so I wanted to go for like a cream colour and then a brown tone. And honestly, when I was building it initially and I placed down the brown matching with the cream wallpaper, I liked it, but I wasn't sure about it, and I was a little bit and ahhing. And so then eventually I made the house completely cream, just got one all colour. But then it wasn't until the very end of the video I was looking at it and I was thinking, no, why did I change it? And so you will see I do eventually end up changing the wallpaper, so it does end up being that brown and cream colour. It is at the very end of the video, so apologies for that. But yeah, I was just looking at the build and I was thinking, I don't know why I did that in the first place. And so yeah, I'm really sorry if you find that quite annoying. I would personally find that annoying, but I was having a bit of a mare when I was building this house, if I was being honest with you. Don't get me wrong, enjoyed it thoroughly, but I was just being very particular, if you want to put it that way. Like I said, coming into this build, it's almost been like weighing on me in a little way to build the Pancakes family a new home, which probably sounds a lot deeper than what it actually is, but I've been really wanting to give Bob and Eliza Pancakes a brand new house in my save file, and honestly, I have lost count the amount of times that I've attempted to build them a new home, and I've never loved it. And so if I don't like it, I'm just gonna put it in the bin. And I've bulldozed so many different versions of houses for them before in the past, but for this one, yeah, I was just being very picky, and I just had a bit of a change of heart at the last minute. But either way, besides from that, as you can see, I've already done the windows and kind of like the roof line up for the house. I decided to go for the windows that we got from the Seasons expansion pack and then pair it with these little like window shutters that we got from the Horse Ranch DLC, just because if you actually look at the window itself, it's got some kind of like black markings on like the top portion, and I don't know, with like the black markings on the inside the window, having kind of like a little black shutter outside, just it looked like it belonged, if you know what I mean. And so yeah, I decided to pair them two together. But as you can see, I'm now moving on and currently coming in and just kind of like jigging the roofing around a little bit, just because I didn't want there to be any kind of like interfering roof pieces with some of the rooms on the inside. But I'm currently coming in and figuring out the floor plan. Now, like I said, this house ends up having 4 bedrooms and 3.5 bathrooms. However, when you enter a brand new save file, the original Pancakes house has 2 bedrooms, but for the Pancakes family in my save, there is actually going to be a new member. There is going to be a little baby Iggy who will be an infant, but then also I wanted there to be a guest bedroom for other like relatives, family members to come and stay in. So you can see I ended up placing down a little bed in the downstairs portion as kind of like the guest suite. It's got a walk-in wardrobe, it's also got a little ensuite, but then upstairs Bob has his own bedroom, Eliza has her own room, and then also little baby Iggy also has a nursery. Now, even though the Pancakes household have been in the game since The Sims 4 launched, I still want to give you a little bit of a brief summary of this family, just so you can kind of like familiarise yourself with them, kind of give you a brief overview of their original storyline, and then I can tell you like kind of like my updated version of them, because I am so happy with kind of like the extra added lore that I've decided to give this household. But basically I will pop a little picture of what the Pancakes household look like on the screen. You've probably seen them. I mean, they're an iconic family in the game. I always personally see Eliza walking around all the different worlds. She's always stomping around, she's always got the ump. But basically this family originally live in the world of Willow Creek, and they're just not very happy. If you actually look at their original traits, these two just should not be together. Like Bob, the husband, he's someone who is a slob, he's a loner and he's gloomy. Meanwhile, Eliza, his wife, she is, you know, neat and she's a perfectionist, and she's also, I think, materialistic. And so on paper, these two just should not be together. And honestly, for a few years, I was really confused on their actual backstory itself, because the Sims team kind of gave us a little bit of a breadcrumb, but they've never really fully expanded on it. Their original household biography states that they're just never really going to be happy, and, you know, will they ever be able to find happiness or something along the lines of that. But honestly, it wasn't until I started coming in and I started really delving deep into my save file, making so many different families in all these different worlds and giving townie makeovers, that I actually had the idea for kind of like their little bit of a tragic backstory. Now, to set the scene, I'm going to pop a little picture of what Eliza Pancakes herself looks like on the screen. And I've already shown you what Bob and Eliza look like together collectively, but I want to show you this picture of Eliza Pancakes, because pretty much the whole entire storyline that I've got revolving around the Pancakes family actually came from giving a different townie a makeover who lives in the world of Windenburg, who is called Maura Fires. I will now pop a picture of her onto the screen. Now, pretty much earlier this year I built it was like a millionaire's like family mansion or something in the world of Windenburg, and I made it for Maura's family. And in the process of building their house, I also had given them a makeover previously, and I realised when I was doing that makeover process that Maura, the woman that lives in Windenburg, looks suspiciously a lot like Eliza that lives in the world of Willow Creek. I then came down to the conclusion that they're sisters. Now, I'm not going to dive too much into Maura, Eliza's now sister, in my save file, because I have, like I said, I previously built a house for her and I spoke about the lore in that video. I'll put a little card on the screen if you want to go and give it a watch. You don't have to by any means, but basically Maura, Eliza's sister, she's a lovely sim, like all round. She's a lovely person. She's got traits of being good, outgoing. She loves outdoors. I made it so in her mansion in the world of Windenburg, she's got kind of like this little greenhouse section, like that is her safe haven. Like, she's just an all round lovely sim. And basically from doing that original house in the world of Windenburg, I then had the idea of, okay, well, what about if Eliza always wanted to marry someone that came from money? I was also then maybe thinking that maybe it stemmed from maybe Maura and Eliza's mum was kind of like pushing her daughters, you know, marry into wealth so they will always be, you know, taken care of or something. But I basically had the idea of, well, they look very similar, I'm going to make them sisters. But Eliza Pancakes, whenever I see her in the world, she's always just really angry. Like, she's just really angry sim. I then came down to the conclusion of, okay, well, what about if Eliza Pancakes initially got with Bob Pancakes because he comes from a family of money. I will talk about that shortly. But in the end, she didn't really end up getting the life that she expected to get from marrying Bob Pancakes. However, her sister, on the other hand, Maura, that lives in the world of Windenburg, she married a very, very rich musician, and now she's living up in the world of Windenburg, and now she's got the life that Eliza always thought that she would have. And that's the reason why Eliza is always so angry. Now, like I just said, Eliza married Bob Pancakes initially because he basically stems from a family of quite extreme wealth. I will say, when you enter a brand new safe file, Bob Pancake's family is nowhere to be seen. Like, his parents don't exist, he hasn't got any relatives. Same with Eliza as well, but just the way that I'm trying to build my save file, I just feel like it's so much more rewarding if you enter into a brand new save and you can see all these different Sims, but then they've got cousins and they've got brothers and sisters and parents. I just love it. And so I have, already come in and I've actually made Bob's family who live in the world of Newcrest. Now, again, I've actually already built their house, which I'll pop another card on the screen in case you want to go and watch it. I'm not going to go too much into the OG Pancakes lore, but pretty much, cut a long story short, Bob's dad is an author and his mum is a very iconic film director. Also plays really well into just generic Sims 4 lore, because in the game we've got a poster of Bob Pancakes eating pancakes, and I was speaking about it in this previous video that I did, but I was thinking that was a film that his mum has recently, produced or come out with, directed, and there is a poster of Bob Pancakes because it was a movie poster for his mum's film that kind of focused about his life. And I don't know, I just really loved that aspect of being able to incorporate that into my save file, because that poster's in the game, you can buy it, and I've kind of given a reason why the poster exists in the first place. I did include that poster in this build. It is in his parents' house in Newcrest as well, but I do also include the iconic Bob Pancakes in his red dressing gown eating pancakes in this house. However, it is in Eliza's, my version of her closet. If you've ever seen Friends, Monica's closet. Basically, even though Eliza, she is someone who, like I said, she is a perfectionist, she's materialistic, and she's also neat. In this house, she has this one little space, and it's Eliza's closet. And in that closet, at the very back, I placed down that pancakes picture, or I say the pancakes picture, the picture of Bob Pancakes eating pancakes. But I made it look like it's just been shoved in the corner, it's been forgotten about, she doesn't like it, she doesn't like the fact that there is a film that's made after her husband. And I also made it so it's like got a crack in it, like maybe it broke and like they haven't fixed it or something. But I did tie that into the house somewhere. But I also do tie in other things from kind of like Bob and Eliza's childhood, and kind of like how I imagined that they were going to have their life. Which, saying that, actually I think I'm more so focused on Eliza's like teen life, and I imagine how she imagined her life more so than Bob. But you'll see that when we move on to it, because basically I referenced a previous gallery upload version of her, because the high school years expansion pack, or pretty much when that DLC came out, EA went onto the gallery and they uploaded previous versions of different townies from when they were teenagers. So we've got like Nancy and Jeffrey Landgrab, we've also got Bella Goth, Mortimer Goth, we've also got Bob and Eliza Pancakes. And I basically looked at Eliza's likes and dislikes from her teenage version on the gallery and incorporated it into, her little like Eliza's closet upstairs in, it's actually like her little private office, which I also did some other things in that room, which we'll get onto, but you can actually see that I'm coming in, and shortly in a second, I'm going to move over and start decorating the inside of this house. Now, I do still have quite a bit of lore to tell you about Bob and Eliza Pancakes. I haven't even discussed the fact that they've now got a baby, but I mean, to be fair, a baby is just a baby. They ain't got that much personality, but I still do have quite a bit of background to give you around Bob and Eliza Pancakes. However, I'm going to put a pin in it for a second, purely because, as you can see, I've now moved on into the inside, and I've started coming in and decorating their entrance hallway, but I'm using one of the new kits that recently came out. So around about, was that like 2, maybe 3 weeks ago now, we got another Creator Made kit for Build and Buy, which was called the Grange Mudroom Kit. It was made by Peacemaker, and pretty much this is my first time playing around with it in the game. My last couple of videos were pre-recorded because I was away, and so if you was wondering why I didn't use any of the items in them builds, it's purely because I didn't have access to them when I was pre-recording stuff or when I was going to be out of town. But yeah, this is my first play around with the new, it's basically like a little bit of a hallway kit. It's lovely. We've got some new built-in furniture pieces. We've got some little sideboards, some clutter decorations. We've also got a lovely new mirror. It's just very nice for your Sims hallway, and I really wanted to include it in this house because in the promo images for the Grange Mudroom kit, it's Bob and Eliza. Like, I'll find it for you and I'll pop it on the screen, but they're literally in the promo images for this kit. And so coming into building their house this week for them, I knew I needed to make it so, yeah, Bob and Eliza Pancakes have quite a fancy entrance into their home. At the same time that the Grange Mudroom Build and Buy kit came out, there was also a Creator Sim kit, which that one is called the Essentials Glam kit. Now, I must admit, I haven't actually properly looked at it myself yet because since I've been home, I just haven't, I haven't been in CAS recently, but that was made by Cryptic Sim, and let me tell you, I have got pretty much every single makeup collection CC wise that Cryptic Sim has ever come out with. They are just like my go-to when it comes down to makeup, and so yeah, they actually made a kit in the game, and so I just know that they are just going to be just so good, especially for like future townie makeovers. It makes me excited because I'm having to play around a lot with like hues and stuff when it comes around to putting makeup on townies in my save file, but I feel like this new Essentials Glam kit is going to be, yeah, really handy. But I am mentioning both these kits because thanks to the EA Creator Network, I'm actually going to be hosting a giveaway. Now, if you want to enter, all you've got to do is just comment down below which one you fancy, like whether it be the Grange Mudroom kit or the Essentials Glam kit, and then also pop me a message on Instagram, which my Instagram handle is Jessicapie, and again, just tell me which one you'd prefer, and then also, could you tell me your YouTube handle as well, please? And yeah, that's all we got to do. It's open worldwide, but it's only available for PC and Mac, and I'm going to close the giveaway on next Friday. So what's that? What's the date today? 5th, the 12th. So you've got about a week if you want to enter, but yeah, I'm just doing a giveaway thanks to, once again, the EA Creator Network. But either way, getting back to the build, as you can see, I kind of like finished up that initial entrance mudroom into the home, and I already did kind of like the staircase hallway, if you want to put it that way, because when you enter this home, you're not like met with a staircase straight away. You're kind of met with a nice little area to put your coat up, your hat and coat and scarf and all that kind of stuff, put your shoes away, and then you walk through an archway, and that's kind of like a second hallway where the staircase is, and then it leads you into whether it be the kitchen, this room, or the dining room, or the lounge and stuff. But something that I wanted to mention, at the very start I said that coming into furnishing this build, I tried to be quite mindful of how their original house is decorated, because if you enter a brand new save file and you visit the Pancakes Family Home, the original house, or I'm going to say the original house, because they did actually do a second version of like a more updated Pancakes house, but to be honest with you, I haven't even looked at it, but in the OG 2014 version, it's decorated to be quite traditional, and coming into this build, I wanted to have elements of that traditional style, but kind of do it in my own way. And so hopefully some of the furniture choices that I went for, and then also like the wallpaper, kind of show that. I feel like it kind of comes through the most in both the lounge room, but then especially in Eliza's bedroom upstairs. I've really tried to pull through like that traditional kind of furniture style, which is not my personal cup of tea, but it's Eliza Pancakes' cup of tea, and so I tried to do it in this build. But either way, getting back to the lore of this family, now I'm going to go right back to kind of like the beginning of what I imagine their relationship started off like. Now, I know it sounds a little bit boring, I know that, but I basically imagine that this couple got together when they were in high school. Now, the reason why I'm saying this, and I know it is a little bit boring sometimes having, they met in high school, they're high school sweethearts, but sometimes it's lovely. Sometimes it's really nice to have a Sims family that they were high school sweethearts, they got married, they had kids, happy families. In this case, for Eliza, not so much, but I like the idea that they met in high school purely because I've based this section off the high school versions of them on the gallery. Now, Bob's teenage version of himself, he had the likes of cooking, but he didn't like mischief, and his traits originally were he was a slob, and he was also a little bit of a loner, bless his heart, whereas Eliza used to be Hastings, because apparently that was her maiden name, which I'm going to continue that lore, and I'm going to make it so Eliza's mum, who will be living with her sister in Windenburg in my save file, but her name's going to be Hastings because, that is kind of like apparently the original name. But Eliza Hastings, when she was in high school, she liked fitness and paintings, and she had the traits of being a perfectionist and a materialistic sim. Now, basically, I more so focused on the painting aspects of that, and then also her yearbook quote, which the Sims team gave us, which, and I quote, her yearbook says that I'm going to create a business that is so perfect, even the land grabs will want to be a part of it. Now, basically, when I saw that, and I saw the fact that she liked painting, I kind of came up with the idea that she was a little bit of an artsy girl, you know, growing up. Maybe she had like an extracurricular activity that she attended to or something like that, and she always wanted to open up her little own art studio. However, I was thinking that Eliza and her sister Maura, their mum, she's someone that just wanted her girls to, you know, do well in life, and more so just have a very comfortable well-being, and just kind of wanted her girls to marry into money to kind of look after themselves. And so I imagine that Eliza's mum, who I don't actually know what her name is going to be yet, I haven't actually created her yet. I've made it so Eliza and Maura are sisters in my save file, but I haven't created their mum yet. But basically, I like the idea that Eliza and Maura's mum basically said to both of her girls, you've got to, you know, get with someone that's got a little bit of money. Eliza saw Bob Pancakes in school. He was a loner when he was a teenager, like he didn't have any mates, and so she just kind of saw it as a perfect opportunity to, you know, get with him. And in her head, knowing that his family, you know, his mum's a film director, his dad is a best-selling author, she kind of assumed that she would be set for life. Kind of all boiling down to the fact that she was just doing something to kind of like please her parents, which sadly does actually happen a lot in real life. Like, a lot of people pursue careers that their family want them to pursue, and not so much, you know, what they actually want to do. In this case, it's not a career. She actually wanted a career herself, but she was just trying to, yeah, basically make her mum or dad, maybe it's her mum and her dad, happy. And yeah, in doing that, she kind of like lost her, I don't want to say like inspiration for painting and stuff like that, but in her little like Monica's closet upstairs, I do place down like a painting easel, and I place down like cobwebs around it and old art books I imagine were hers when she was in secondary school and stuff. And so I do actually imagine that, even though she is a little bit of a difficult sim, if that's the best way to put it, I imagine that it's kind of like a little bit of her, like a bit of like a villain arc, if you want to put it that way, because I always just see her angry in the worlds. Like, if ever I see Eliza Pancakes walking down the road, she's always stomping her feet, and I imagine it kind of stems down from the fact that in my head she had a family that wanted her, you know, to marry into wealth, and she tried to lock that in from quite an early age, whereas I imagine her sister that lives in that millionaire's mansion in Windenburg never wanted to do that. She was a kind-hearted person. She never wanted to participate in doing that to kind of like deceive someone. And now her sister is living it up in this like millionaire's mansion. It's got like a tennis court, it's got a swimming pool, and meanwhile Eliza, I mean, don't get me wrong, she lives in a very nice, decent sized house. If this was real life, this must be at least $1 million, if not maybe 2. It depends on where you live, but she lives in a very nice house. But I don't know, I feel like she just probably expected more. And I actually spoke about this a little bit when I built Bob's like mum and dad's house, which I imagine that basically they gave them the deposit to buy this home in Willow Creek. Like, they live in Newcrest, Bob lives over here in Willow Creek. I imagine that Bob's mum and dad gave him the deposit to put down on this house, but I feel like Eliza kind of expected a little bit more than what she has. But now moving over to current day, Bob and Eliza Pancakes, like I said in my save, they now have a baby. They have Iggy Pancakes, who I've mentioned this before because I've actually mentioned the Pancakes family lore in now 3 videos on my channel. But like I said, I'm building a save file. I'm trying to make everyone like intertwined and blended in some degree. But basically, Iggy Pancakes isn't originally part of the household, but again, they were a gallery upload. I believe it's when we got the introduction of toddlers in the game. The Sims team put a version of Bob and Eliza, and they had a toddler called Iggy. But in my save, I aged him down and I made him so he's now a wiggly little infant. Now, at one point, and this is going to sound quite nasty, but at one point I was toying with the idea of maybe the reason why Iggy Pancakes was born in the first place is because Eliza thought that maybe she could get a little bit more of a handout from Bob's mum and dad, because, you know, they have got quite a bit of money. I mean, they're both kind of pretty much retired at this point. Bob's dad is a professor at the university on the side, but for the most part, they've just got money in the bank. And so at one point, I was thinking, well, maybe they had an infant, or no, they had a baby, then aged up, but maybe they had a baby because she saw it as a little bit of like a money bag kind of situation. You know, she thought that if she was to have a kid with Bob Pancakes, maybe she would get a little bit more money. However, now thinking on it current day, I don't think I want to go down that route. I'm now more so thinking that maybe the reason why they had a baby is purely just to kind of, I don't want to say save their marriage, because I don't imagine that their marriage was ever good in the first place. I mean, Eliza, you know, she just kind of, in my head, she just put up with him. And going back to her teenage version of herself on the gallery, she didn't have the neat trait when she was growing up. And Bob didn't have the gloomy trait. So that means that from their teenage versions of themselves to their current day versions, they've acquired them traits from, you know, their lifestyles and stuff. And I imagine that Eliza is just sick of like picking up after Bob. You know, he's a slob, he's a messy kind of sim. And so after a while, she's become quite a neat sim. However, Bob, with Eliza probably always jumping down his throat all the time, I imagine that he feels quite isolated and he feels quite sad. I mean, he's always been a loner. He was a loner when he was a teenager, and so I imagine that he found what he thought was his person. It's actually really sad, bless his heart. But I imagine he probably thought that he found someone that, you know, actually loved him, but actually doesn't really like him. Also, he does not like his wife, and I made a reference to this in his little bedroom because there is actually a picture of both Bob and Eliza Pancakes that we got from the basement's treasure kit, and it's a picture of them when they're like newly married or something, and there is two swatches. There is a plain blue frame that is like complete glass, but then there is a second swatch where it's kind of like a floral frame, but the glass in the picture is cracked, and I put that into his bedroom. But I just thought, for a little bit of like fun, to be honest, I actually moved objects a dart into it, and I made it look like he threw a dart at the picture of his wife. It's not in her head. I'm not a complete savage, but I did move objects a debugged dart into her bum. But it kind of makes sense because the version of the photo frame that I placed down into Bob's bedroom, it's the cracked version, and so I placed it down where the crack is, and ironically it just happens to be in her behind. And so yeah, he doesn't like his wife. But no, the reason why I think nowadays why they had their son Iggy is because Eliza, she's not employed, she doesn't have a job, and I'm going to make it so in my save she doesn't have one, but she just kind of needed to find something to almost like fill up her days in a way. And so where she is quite a lonely sim, I imagine that she hasn't got that many friends because she is quite odd to talk to, really. But I imagine that she just wanted a baby to kind of like keep her time occupied. And I imagine she's a really good mum. Like, I imagine she's a lovely mum, but she just had a little bit of a sad life, you know, like she pursued a relationships in basically just wanting to make her family happy, you know. Like I said, this happens in real life. Like, some people will go and get a degree and, you know, pursue a whole entire career in something that someone else wants for them and not necessarily what they want. And so, I mean, don't get me wrong, it's still a very nasty thing to do. I'm not letting her off, but I do kind of feel sorry for her in that way. But yeah, that's kind of like the idea that I've got for Bob and Eliza. In terms of Bob's job, because obviously there's got to be some sort of income in this household, like it is quite a decent sized house. And like I said, I don't imagine that Bob's mum and dad give him hands out. They gave him a handout and kind of put down the deposit on his home, but I imagine that he is in the cooking career. I always really struggle to say the name of it, the culinary career. I don't know why, it's always such a tongue twister, but that is his original career when you enter a brand new save file, and I'm going to keep it that way. I'm going to make it so he's a little bit higher up, and I'm going to make it so he's a little bit of a better cook than what he is by default, because I think when you enter a brand new save, he's got like 2 or 3 cooking points. But yeah, I'm going to make it so he's quite good at being a chef. I imagine that he's a brilliant cook, but he's just very messy in the kitchen. And so, yeah, that is basically the idea that I've got for both Bob and Eliza Pancakes. But either way, moving over, perfect timing actually, because I really wanted to speak about what I did in here. As you can see, I've now moved on to the upstairs portion, and I'm currently coming in and decorating Eliza's home office. Now, even though she doesn't have a career, like I said, I do like the potential idea of maybe one day when baby Iggy grows up, maybe she will pursue, you know, like her art gallery idea. Now, I must admit, her wanting to have an art gallery is a bit of a stretch. I can appreciate that. But the thing is, because I don't look at Eliza Pancakes and think, yeah, you're an artist. Not to be rude, but I don't. But I'm just purely basing this bit of like backstory from the teen version of her on the gallery. Like I said, she had the likes of fitness and painting, and her quote was she wanted to have a business that the land grabs would want to be a part of. And so I just kind of got the idea from an art gallery from that. And I mean, in here, as you can see, I've already started to place down, like incorporate some like painting decorations and clutter. At first, I was going to have basically in the middle of the room, and I was going to kind of make this room into a little bit of a bits and bobs space. I mean, you can already see I've placed down a treadmill on the left hand side, and I don't know if you're going to be able to notice it right now, but hopefully in a second when I spin the camera you're going to be able to see it. But next to the treadmill, I placed down a little water bottle and then also some binoculars, because this room has a perfect view of the street that they live on. And in my head, Eliza Pancakes is quite a nosy sim. And so I placed down, some little binoculars. So when she's on her treadmill, she can kind of like look out onto the neighbourhood and kind of like see what everyone's doing, kind of like spy on everyone. But yeah, initially I was going to have all of the different like artsy kind of like bits and bobs kind of like shoved into the middle of the room. But then I had the idea of, well, what about if I just do a little bit of a Friends reference and make a Eliza's closet? Because if you've ever seen the TV show Friends, there is a character in it called Monica, and she is very neat and just very like put together, and everything has to be in like a certain way and stuff like that. But basically people discover over time that she actually has a secret closet, and it's just an absolute pit basically, and it's Monica's closet. And I just thought, where Eliza is a sim that has, perfectionist traits, she's a neat sim, she kind of also could potentially have a little bit of a messy side. But in that little closet, I placed down like an art easel, I placed down some like old drawing books that I imagine with hers in school and stuff, and then I also placed down a baby bassinet that I imagine it used to be Iggy's when he was a newborn. I kind of made that little closet into a bit of a garage space. Like sometimes when you just have like knickknacks and just random stuff in a garage in the game, I basically just made that little closet into exactly that. But I did also place down that painting from the basement treasure kit, the one that I was saying has got a picture of Bob and Eliza when they first got married. I initially placed it down into there, but then I end up deleting that, and then you'll see shortly, but I basically replaced it and placed down the Bob Pancakes eating pancakes painting. But either way, moving over, as you can see, I've now started coming in and decorating Eliza's bedroom. So this is what I meant, by the way, with like the more traditional kind of theme, kind of being more prominent in her bedroom. I used the bed that we got from the Discover University expansion pack. It was kind of like a happy medium, because in her original house, in like the OG 2014 Pancakes build, which I'm saying the OG because a little while ago the Sims team basically did an update where if you now enter a brand new save file and you haven't touched any of the iconic townies houses, a lot of them will be updated and kind of a little bit more modernised to current day. Whereas the original house that Bob and Eliza used to live in, she had a pink bedroom, and so I couldn't really find like a nice up-to-date like pink bed frame that I really liked. And so I just placed down the one that we got from Discover University. It's a little bit more of like a creamy colour, but to kind of like make up for it, I placed down a little pink rug in her room. But now, as you can see, I've now moved on and I've started decorating her ensuite. The way that I've got the house right now, if you was to focus on like the right hand side of the screen, you can kind of see the next room is also meant to be a bathroom. Hopefully you can kind of see it from just like the wallpaper choices that I placed down next door. And initially I was going to have it so Bob and Eliza both have their own ensuite bathrooms, but then I kind of like finished up the ensuite for Eliza. I then went in and I did decorate an ensuite for Bob Pancakes, but I don't know, I just don't really love the look of having two bathrooms directly next to each other. Sometimes it's got to happen, but in this house there is also another bathroom upstairs, and I mean, it's not ideal, but Bob still can, use a loo in there. It's more so for like what I was thinking would be for Iggy, but yeah, he does have a bathroom. It is just not an ensuite bathroom in the end. But now, as you can see, I've now moved over and I've started decorating Bob's bedroom. This is where I quickly come in and find that poster of him eating pancakes, and I basically just shove it into the monocle closet in this house. It was very like quick, but yeah, when I was initially decorating that little space in Eliza's home office, I didn't even think about it, but as soon as I came in, I started looking for artwork for Bob's space. I saw his picture, remembered what his mum does, and so I was thinking, no, I need to make a reference to it in this house. And I was thinking it's quite vain to have a poster of yourself in your bedroom, and so I was thinking maybe I'll just put it in, Eliza's closet, and then I'll put a crack on it, because I imagine she's not the biggest fan of the fact that there is a whole film made about her husband and probably how, when I say like miserable his life is. Maybe it's like a bit of a parody film or something like that. I'm not even too sure, but in this bedroom, as you can see, I decided to go for the bed that we got from the Cats and Dogs expansion pack. And then actually on the bed itself, I've already placed down a little pillow and then also a tablet, but then eventually I'll also end up placing down a TV remote as well. I was really umming and ahhing whether I should include a TV into Bob's bedroom, purely because where I've already made his parents' house in the world of Newcrest, in that home I made it so Bob's basically got like his own little personal space in the basement, because the idea that I had for Bob growing up is he had the smallest bedroom in the home, because I imagine he is the youngest. He has got a sister, but she is a little bit older than him, and I actually need to talk about the sister because she actually does tie in to the infant's room shortly. But basically, in Bob's mum and dad's house in Newcrest, I made it so if ever he needs to escape Eliza, he can kind of like pop over and then go down to the basement and kind of, just chill out down there. But then when I was coming around to doing this room, I was hesitant, because I was thinking, well, why would he need to go around to his mum and dad's house if he's got a TV in his own bedroom? But then it just, at the end of the day, it made for nice decoration. And so, yeah, I placed down a little TV, but it's a very small, cheap one. It's actually one that you can find in a bin, which, to be honest, I don't imagine Eliza is too happy that is in her home, but you would have seen as well, I completely spoke over it, but I placed down a dartboard in Bob's bedroom, and then next to the dartboard I placed down that painting of Bob and Eliza, and then I just move objects like a little dart into the painting itself. But now moving on, as you can see, I've now moved on into the next room, which is Iggy's room. So in here, I am so happy with the way that this room ended up kind of like turning out. I did also use some of them like built-in like modular furniture pieces, the ones that we got from the mudroom kit. I did also incorporate them into this room because the colour of them kind of went perfectly with the colour scheme that I went for this nursery. But the reason why I wanted to quickly mention Bob's sister, I haven't really spoken about her, I don't think, in this voiceover, but Bob does have a sister, and basically she's kind of got this whole storyline of she wanted to go and find herself, and so she went travelling. However, when it came round to decorating the infant baby Iggy's room, I kind of wanted to have elements of his relatives that live in different worlds in different areas. And so on the bookcase that I popped down into the corner, I end up placing down a little, I think it's meant to be like a tuk-tuk or something, which you can find in the world of Tomarang. And in my mind, Bob's sister has, recently been travelling. She recently went to the world of Tomarang, and so I placed it down onto the bookcase. But then I also found a little snow globe, which I think the snow globe itself is from the City Living expansion pack, but I placed down this snow globe, and if you look at it closely, it's a little tiny Tudor house. And obviously Iggy's got an auntie, Maura, who lives in the world of Windenburg, because that is his mum's sister. But then also the tuk-tuk from, his other auntie who lives in the world of Newcrest with his grandparents. I was just really happy with kind of like them little like ties in the infant's nursery, because even though I imagine that there is quite a bit of like family tension, Iggy's a baby, do you know what I mean? And so everyone would gift their nephew or their grandson or whoever it is something when they're first born. And so yeah, I placed it down onto his little bookcase. But you can see I finished Iggy's room off, and then quickly just come in and pretty much just did the upstairs hallway for the house. I normally leave hallways until the very last point, just because sometimes when I'm building I might need to like rejig a bedroom door into a different place, or maybe like a bathroom door or something, and I just find it's a lot easier to leave hallways until the very last last point. But other than that, I'm going to run around the exterior of the build, change up that wallpapering that we'll speak about, add a little bit of colour into the landscaping, and that is pretty much it. So anyway guys, I'm going to end this voiceover right here. As always, you can download this build via the gallery. My gallery ID is JessicapieYT, or just search for the hashtag JessicapieYT or just the hashtag Jessicapie. As always, thank you guys so much for watching this video, and as always, if you do like my content then please do subscribe, and hopefully I will see you in my next Sims 4 speedrunning video. Bye guys.